Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are, there we go, we'll have a little more volume. There we go, that'll work right there. Perfect. We are going to light our Shabbat candles right off the bat because then we're going to jump into this special evening. You can find the blessing for lighting our candles on page 120 in your Siddur. For those of you who are guests and are not used to Hebrew books, I should tell you the book goes from right to left, not left to right, if you didn't figure that out yet. If you did figure that, it still goes right to left. But our blessing for lighting our candles at the top of page 120. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. Tonight is a different sort of service. It's a different sort of service because this weekend is the weekend before the holiday of Purim. And the holiday of Purim, of course, the Talmud says, Kishenichnas Adar Marbima Simcha, which means when the month of Adar on the Hebrew calendar enters, which happened not quite 2 weeks ago, happiness increases. And so we are supposed to be joyful during this month. And what's more wonderful than bringing joy to us through music? I'm a firm believer that music brings great joy. I had great joy for 2 hours and 45 minutes last night at the Bruce Springsteen concert in Denver. It was really good. If you weren't there, you should have been there. It was great. He's playing like Kansas City or something tomorrow, so you drive there. I don't know. But tonight, in order to get us ready for Purim, we are going to, instead of using our regular music, our traditional music for our prayers, we are going to be entering ourselves into the joy of Purim, which begins on Monday evening. So we should tell you now, Sunday morning at religious school, we're having a religious school celebration of Purim. There will be activities in our Nevatim program for our preschool age kids, activities for our kindergarten through 7th graders, and all sorts of great fun happening that day. Then Monday evening, you will want to be here at 5:30, 6, 5:30. 5:30 is the time you want to be here. There's going to be dinner. After dinner, we'll have our Purim celebration, reading of the Megillah, of Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther. There'll be a Purim spiel, a hip-hop Purim play this year. I understand that it, from what I've been told, it rivals anything that's been put out by any hip-hop artist over the last 50 years. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the rumor that I've heard. I'm going to believe that it's true. And there'll be lots of dancing and singing and all kinds of great celebration for the holiday of Purim. But to get us in the mood for the holiday of Purim, that's where we come to this evening and bring ourselves into Beatles Shabbat. For those, I think I explained to some of our guests, we don't normally sing the prayers to these melodies, but we're supposed to be joyful for Shabbat, and the Beatles should bring us great joy. And so, kind of to introduce exactly what we're doing here, I guess it kind of goes like this. Should we bring the guitar up or down, or is it good? Can you hear the guitar? I might bring it up a little bit. How's that? Yeah, how's that mix? My mixer in the back is giving me the signal in the back. Okay, so we'll go. It was 1,000 years ago when Moses told us to go walk through a parted sea. You were walking right next to me. You came from a mountaintop, commandments written on a rock. The fourth one says celebrate Shabbat. It's Rabbi Jay's Purim Shabbos band. I hope you will enjoy the show. Rabbi Jay's Purim Shabbos band. Sit back and let the weekdays go. Rabbi Jay's Purim, Rabbi Jay's Purim, Rabbi Jay's Purim Shabbos band. It's wonderful to be here on this Erev Shabbat. You're such a lovely long. So let me introduce to you the one and only Shabbat bride and Rabbi Jay Sherwood Shabbos band. Shabbat bride. What would you do if no millions around? Would you stay here and daven with me? Grab a siddur and I'll sing you a prayer. It's as spiritual as can be. Oh, I'm gonna pray with a little help from my friends. Daven today with a little help from my friends. Shabbat is okay with a little help from my friends. Would you believe that Shabbat has arrived? Yes, I know that it visits every week. What do you see when we kindle the lights? Well, I know it's the peace that we seek. Oh, I'm gonna pray with a little help from my friends. Daven today with a little help from my friends. Shabbat is okay with a little help from my friends. Do you need any challah after I drink the wine? Could it be Shevitz? No, I said I want wine. Oh, I'm gonna pray with a little help from my friends. Daven today with a little help from my friends. Shabbat is okay with a little help from my friends. Shabbat is okay with a little help from my friends. With a little help from my friends. And so, we welcome in Shabbat. We're going to turn in our Siddur to Psalm 96. And you're going to find Psalm 96 on page 131. On page 131 is Psalm 96. Now, what I can tell you about all of our prayers this evening is that what we've done is we've taken each prayer and found the theme of the prayer and lined it up with a Beatles tune that has a similar theme. Most of the time tonight, that's going to work. A couple of times tonight, we're going to stretch it a little bit to get there, and then it'll work. And so, on page 131, this psalm says that we should sing to God, and all of the earth will sing to God, and all of God's creations will praise God, because all of God's creations love God, and in fact they do love God. And God might say that they love me, yes they do, and I suppose if I get rid of a couple of those words in there of love me, yes they do, and I get rid of the yes they, I just get love me do. And so that would work. All right, so y'all got to take out your imaginary harmonicas now, okay? So we're going to kind of go like this. Shir Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shir Adonai, Kol Haaretz. All right, get out those harmonicas. Now, if you turn to Psalm 99, which you will find on page 137, I believe, is where that's going to... No, actually, it's not there. We're going to try that again. It's 135. Page 135, it's Psalm 99. And the last three lines of Psalm 99 say, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, we exalt Adonai our God, V'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, and we bow down, we prostrate ourselves at God's holy mountain. And ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, because Adonai our God is holy. And so we're standing at God's holy mountain, of course, Mount Sinai. Now we know, the tradition teaches us that when we stood at Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments, that every single Jewish soul was there. The Talmud says that every single soul, every Jewish soul that ever was at that time, or that ever would be standing there at Mount Sinai. And I can tell you, when we were standing there at Mount Sinai, I don't know about you, but I saw Moses standing there, and I saw Aaron standing there, and I saw you standing there, and you standing there, and as a matter of fact, I saw her standing there too. So that just seems to be the right melody for us to sing these last three lines of Psalm 99, where we were standing there, and I saw her standing there at Mount Sinai. Now, of course, after we make our way through the Psalms of Shabbat, we welcome the Shabbat bride. And the Shabbat bride, you'll find the words of Lecha Dodi on page 138 and 139. Again, on 138, 139, you'll find Lecha Dodi, the beautiful poem that speaks of Shabbat as a bride. It talks about the beauty of Shabbat and welcoming in the peace of Shabbat. And as that bride comes into our world of Beatles Shabbat, of course, there's only one Beatles song that I know of that mentions a wedding. And so we're going to rehearse. Are you ready to rehearse with me? Here we go. We're going to practice the chorus because you need to sing along in the chorus. The chorus, those are those first two lines at the top of page 138. Lecha Dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat Nikabla. Okay, so, everybody got that? Ready? Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat Nikabla. So, did you figure out what the one Beatles song that mentions a bride or a wedding? Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat Nikabla. Try it with me. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala. Pnei Shabbat Mikabela. All right, we got it? Let's do one more time, and then we'll get to the verses. Ready, here we go. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat Mikabela. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat Mikabela. I think you've got it. So it goes a little bit like this. Shamor v'zakor v'diburecha. Yishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad, Yishmo echad. L'shemu tiferet v'letfilah. Here we go. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha. Hihi mekor habracha. Ve'rosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tfilah. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Come, my beloved, and let us meet the bride. Come, let us meet the bride of Shabbat. We're still alive. Verse number 5 on page 139. Hitoreri, hitoreri, hiva oretuni uri, 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 shir daveri, kivod Adonai alayu mihila, lecha dodi kakala, Pnei Shabbat mikabela, lecha dodi kakala, Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Now, you're going to meet Desmond and Molly and the Shabbat bride as we all rise. Face the doors, we welcome the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam v'sicha u'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi kakala, Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. One more time. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi mikakala. Pnei Shabbat mikabela. And if you want Shabbat, sing blah dee blah da. And while you're standing, why don't you turn to your neighbors and wish them all Shabbat Shalom to each and every one of you. And for those of you online with us, Shabbat Shalom on this Beatles Shabbat to all of you online as well. We are so happy to see all of you with us. All right. As I said, all right. All righty, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. I hope you are becoming more and more joyful as we make our way toward the holiday of Purim on this Beatles Shabbat. If you would turn in your Siddur as you are seated to page 140, 140, page 140. We're going to turn to page 140 for Psalm 92. Now, Psalm 92, you got to follow the logic here closely, because Psalm 92 says, let us sing a song of Shabbat. And it tells us that on Shabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, it is good to give thanks to God and to sing of God's name most high. And we look at God's handiwork in the creation of the world, and we realize that on Shabbat, which this psalm is about, we're supposed to cease from all the work of the week and come into a place of rest. And so when we look at all of those things that might hang over us, that stack of papers on your desk at work, that paper that's due for your professor, your homework, the laundry, not this week but last week, there's a whole bunch of snow to shovel. There's all kinds of things we need to do. And what we need to say to ourselves is this, is that when I see all those things and Shabbat is coming, as I look at all that, I'm going to give myself the instruction that all those things that are waiting for me to do, on this Shabbat I'm going to ignore them. Because on Shabbat I just sit in the peace of Shabbat. And as far as the rest of that stuff goes, I can just let it be. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'zomer l'shimcha elyon. V'hagidi b'boker ha'asdecha, ve'emunatcha b'leilot. Mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir l'Shabbat. Mizmor shir l'yom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'zomer l'shimcha elyon. V'hagidi b'boker ha'asdecha, ve'emunatcha b'leilot. Mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir l'yom haShabbat. Mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir, mizmor shir l'yom haShabbat. And now, if you'll turn to page 142. On 142, we come to Shalom Aleichem. It was written in the 17th century as a song to sing around the Shabbat table. It talks about the idea of the angels that exist in the universe coming to watch over us on Shabbat. The Kabbalists, the mystics of Judaism say that we have an extra soul on Shabbat, and so we have an extra angel to watch over that extra soul on Shabbat. And so when we do, we say to these angels, as it says, you can look at the translation, it says, we say, peace to you angels. Enter in peace, O angels. Bless me with peace, O angels. And when Shabbat ends, you can depart in peace. Now this, of course, would be a way for us to say to those angels that we want them to come to us and enter and bless us and depart in peace. But if they're really fun angels, and I'd like to think that all of the angels are really fun. I mean, not the seraphim that guard the Garden of Eden, because they're like on fire and they have fiery swords and stuff, and they're scary. So not those angels. But the other angels, I'd like to think that they're really fun. And I might think that on Shabbat, if we ask those angels, we might say to them that they might want to come out and play with us, especially if those angels are named Prudence, but I don't know. So, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharei, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachi HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Malakeyo. Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Lachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. We're going to turn to page 144. A little bit of Jewish history that you may not know is that the Beatles owned a time machine, and they went back in time and they met with the ancient rabbis in caves just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. We have all the records. It's written on stones and stuff in a cave somewhere in the middle of the Beatle land somewhere. So it was on a magical mystery tour somewhere. And I don't know how it happened, but somehow the Beatles went back in time, and they wrote these melodies, and the ancient rabbis copied them from the Beatles. And one of those ancient melodies that the Beatles wrote, it's not very well known. Ringo wrote this one. And by the way, despite the rumors, Ringo, not Jewish. I know there are rumors out there that Ringo is the Jewish Beatle, but Ringo is not the Jewish Beatle. There was a Jewish Beatle. We all know this, yes? The most important Beatle of all who got them started, right? We all knew who the Jewish Beatle was? Brian Epstein, their first manager, right? Brian Epstein, nice Jewish boy. Without Brian Epstein, there'd be no Beatles. See, the Jews created the Beatles. That's just how it works. But the Beatles went back in their time machine, and they wrote this melody, and they taught it to the ancient rabbis, and it went like this. Yitkadav yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchayetecho Beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman karivim eru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam ulam me'amaya Yitbarach Vishtabach Vitpa'ar Vitraman Vitnaseh Vitadar Vitale Vitalal Shemei Dekudisha Barichu Le'ila Min Kol Berachata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damihiram Be'alma V'yimeru Amen. Again, written by Ringo Starr. It was secretly awarded a Grammy, but we don't talk about that one because it's a secret thing. Because if they let people know that won a Grammy, they'd have to let people know about the time machine, and they just didn't want to do that. So we now come to the introduction to the service, really the invitation to pray. You want to be on page 146. Hey Jews, it's time to pray. Will you stand up and say the Baruch Hu? Remember to let God into your heart, then you can start the Baruch Hu. The words are on 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amen. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Anytime you want to pray, hey Jews will say the words that are written in your Siddur. That's a prayer book for those people who don't know how to say Hebrew. Oh, let me see over here. So anytime you want to pray 3 times a day, you're making the world a little better. Hey Jews, it's time to pray. Now that you've set the bar of remember to let God into your heart, and you can start to pray each day. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews is the part where you all join in now. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews, you get a little bit louder now. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews, you do the do the do the do the do the. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews, oh yeah, one more time. Na, 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 na. Hey Jews. All right, we can all be seated. You know, someone asked me if I wasn't a rabbi, what would I be? And I thought maybe I'd be a stand-up comedian. Okay, here's my one joke that I ever wrote. Actually, I wrote 2, but I'm only going to tell you one because it's a Beatles joke. Are you ready? Here we go. I was always confused by Catholicism because, you know, a couple of popes ago, when Pope John Paul died, I thought he was going to be replaced by Pope George Ringo. And that's why I'm a rabbi. Only one person in the room liked that. I worked so hard on that joke. I guess it was funnier like 30 years ago when Pope John Paul was alive still. So anyway, I don't know. On page 148, we come to a prayer called Ma'ariv Aravim. Ma'ariv Aravim talks about the idea of God's creation, of all of the stars and the sun and the moon and all of the things in the heavens and how they rotate around the heavens and how God changes day to night and night to day and moves all of the things that make their way across the universe. Half of the room's like, I don't know what that means. Across the universe. It's another Beatles song, trust me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim ma'ariv aravim u'bizuna meshane itim ומחניק את הזמנים ולסדר את הכוכבים מעריב ערבים מעריב ערבים אל חי וקיים תמיד ירוך עלינו לעולם ועד Baruch atah Adonai Ha'amariv Aravim Ma'ariv Aravim Ma'ariv Aravim Ma'ariv page 150. We come to a prayer that we give thanks for the gift of Torah. And it says, Ahavat Olam. With great love, God gave us the Torah. And so the Torah is actually a gift of love from God. And when God says, I'm going to give you the Torah, God doesn't say, I give you the Torah with a little bit of my love. No. God doesn't say, I give you the Torah with some of my loving. No. No, God doesn't say that. God says, I give you the Torah with all my loving. So there you go. So now you know. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu le'ma'adetai. See how it goes? So we're going to take it from the top so you can all join in. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha I kind of like that prayer. Now, remember I said that they all match up beautifully to all themes in the prayers? This one matches up better than anything else in the entire prayer book. Because, you see, we're going to say the words of the Shema. Shema says, there is one God, right? And the Beatles had many number one songs. That's as good as it's going to get. It's not going to get any better than that. That's it. So the very first number one hit that the Beatles had, not here in the United States, but across the pond over that way. I don't know what way they are. But it depends on which way you take a flight. I mean, if you go the long way, you go over the Pacific, it's like, it's more scenic, but it takes twice as long. But the very first number one hit that the Beatles had in the United Kingdom was a song called Please Please Me. And so, of course, that would be the reason why we would sing Please Please Me as the melody for the Shema that says that there's one God, because this was their first number one hit. Are you with me? I hope so, because I've got no better explanation for this melody than that. Page 152 and 153. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. doesn't work, but it works. So we'll try that again. Ready? Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God, Adonai is one. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Our God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Number one. God's number one. The Beatles are number one. You know, it all works. And now, we have a problem. And the problem is that once we were slaves in Egypt. Actually, you know what? There is another melody that we're going to chant. 154. Ringo didn't write this one for the time machine. This was George. And so, if you'll join me with the ancient melody that George Harrison wrote when he went in the time machine. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. Page 158. Now we know that once upon a time there was a story of slavery that we tell at the time of Passover. And when the sea parted, our ancestors sang these words that are at the top of page 158. At the song of the sea, they gave thanks to God that said, "You are the only God who can take us out of Egypt." But what most people have never heard is the part of the Torah. It's written in invisible ink. So that's why most of you have never seen it, because you don't have the proper technique to look at the visible ink. And the invisible ink, if I translate it into English, before this song of the sea here, if we translate the invisible ink into English, the invisible ink tells this part of the story. Help! I'm stuck in Egypt. Help! Won't you send me Moses? Help! You know I gotta get out of here. Help! That really was, they screamed out in that melody exactly. It's the traditional Torah music of how they screamed out to God. Now, every night we say to God, please watch over us as we sleep through the night. Those are the words of Hashkivenu that you'll find on page 160. It's kind of a Jewish lullaby. Anybody figure it out yet? Because when we sleep through the night, I agree. Whoever just said that, I agree. There's a beautiful expression. That it's a Hebrew expression, and instead of saying, we say Laila Tov, which means good night, right? That's a beautiful expression, good night. But there's a beautiful Hebrew expression that when my daughter was born, she's 18 now, but when she was born, every night I used to say to her before she went to bed this Hebrew expression. And the Hebrew expression is Chalomot Paz. And it literally translates to golden dreams. Isn't that a beautiful expression? It's a very, very old Hebrew expression, Chalomot Paz. When you sleep, may you have golden dreams, right? And if you can't have golden dreams, at least you can have, no one's going to fill it in, ready? Golden slumbers. Hashkivenu, Adonai Elohim. Shalom, v'ha'amidenu, shoreinu l'chaim, u'prosalenu sukat shlomecha, hashkivenu, Adonai Elohim, v'ha'amidenu, shoreinu l'chaim, u'prosalenu sukat shlomecha. You with me on that one? Okay. We're in the paragraph that's kind of in the middle there, that indented paragraph. We're going to get the third line in the Hebrew. Now, as we turn to page 162, you'll notice that 162 is that commandment that God gave to Moses to give to all of us. When Moses went up on Mount Sinai 3 different times, 40 days each time. Is gone for a long, long time. And as Moses came down from the mountain, God said to Moses, here's what you need to tell the people. You need to tell the people, as it says on page 162, that Shabbat is a covenant between me and the people. Because in 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth. On the 7th day, God created Shabbat, a time of rest. And so, the Talmud, they actually ask a question. So, What did God do on the 8th day? That's really in the Talmud. It's in Masechet Kiddushin. It's actually in the Talmud. The rabbis say, so what did God do on the 8th day? And the Talmudic answer is that God started arranging marriages. And then there's like this whole story about bad marriages and good marriages and a whole thing with a Roman princess and like all this kind of stuff. But we don't have time for that tonight. And so I'm going to tell you that really the story is this, that God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day God rested. But really, the week that God created has 8 days a week.
Shabbat, Dorotam, Beritolam, Veshamru. You got it? We're right from the very beginning. Veshamru, Yisrael, Et HaShabbat, La'asod Et HaShabbat, Dorotam, Beritolam,
That's the real story. I know the Torah talks about that 7-day thing, but it's really 8 days. We're going to take a moment to step away from the Beatles and step into our own minds. Really, if we read in the Talmud, there are four babas. Baba in Aramaic means gate. There's Baba Kama, Baba Batra, and Baba Metzia are the three famous ones. The opening gate, the middle gate, and the final gate. But there's really 4 babas in the Talmud. Baba Batra, the opening gate. Baba Metzia, the middle gate. Baba Kama, the final gate. And Baba Ganoush, the eggplant gate. It's the eggplant gate. And in Masechet Baba Ganoush, that's where the Beatles learned that they should engage in Hit bodedut is the Hebrew word. Everybody say hit bodedut. Now, in Beatles parlance, hit bodedut translates into transcendental meditation with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So, just as the Beatles did as they looked inside themselves, hit bodedut literally means to look inside, introspection, to look inside yourself. And that's what we're going to do, just like the Beatles did when they were hanging out with the Maharishi in India. We're going to turn to page number 164. We're going to rise. We're going to sing the traditional melodies of the beginning of the Amidah. And then we're going to engage in hitbodedut, looking within ourselves as we take some time for our silent prayer that runs through page 180. And when you're finished with your silent prayer, we'll be seated and we'll bring our Beatles Shabbat to a close with a few more extra prayers. Adonai Sifatai tiftach ufia gita hilatecha Baruch atah Adonai 166 Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol
V'zocher se avot v'imahot, umevi go'ula livnei v'nehem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham be'ezrat Sarah, 168, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Michaye hakol atah Rab lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid haga Hashem, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Michaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishene afar, nicha mocha ba'al givurot, umido melach, melech memitu mechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, 170. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, Yehallelu Selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You continue through 180 silently, or the prayers that you find in your own heart, in your own minds, in the Hebrew, the translations, or on the odd pages, with some meditations as well. We pray silently. Page 180 will work for you. Everybody's talking about Ose Shalom, Dimroma, Vanda Ose Shalom, Dimroma, Kuya, Ase Shalom, Aleinu, Aleinu. All we are saying is Ose Shalom. All we are saying is Ose Shalom. Now, you know, when John Lennon did this, he said that he talked about all these isms, but for it to work here, it's only going to work if we do it this way, because
just works this way. You know the real one, when John Lennon sings and he says, everybody's talking about bagism, shagism, dragism, mad, and that. But the only way it works here on Shabbat is we do it this way. Here it goes. Everybody's talking about Judaism, 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 Judaism. Isn't that the most? All we are saying is Osei Shalom. All we are saying is Osei Shalom. Everybody's talking about may the one who makes peace in all of the high places in the heavens make peace for us and for all of Israel and all who inhabit the earth. And let us say Amen, 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 Amen. All we are saying Osei Shalom, which in English would be all we are saying That was the exclamation point, I think, right there. We're going to step away from some Beatles tunes to a person who said that she was inspired by the Beatles to write some music. That's actually really true. We're going to turn to page 371. And on 371, we'll think of those who are in need of healing as we ask God to bring healing to all those in need. In the middle of page 371. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, renewal of body, renewals of spirit, and let us say Amen. Now, ever since I started doing Beatles Shabbat on the Shabbat before Purim, I have given the exact same sermon every single year. It's a little something that, James and I wrote. You're familiar with James, the Beatle James? I mean, come on. Paul's his middle name, everybody. Do we not know our Beatles trivia? His name is James Paul McCartney, right? Do we all know that? So James and I, we were sitting around one day, and, we just kind of put a little something together. We were thinking about the world around us, and so James and I sat down, James, Paul, and I, back there in 1968 when we wrote this. I was born in 1968, it's true. I mean, I was 2, but okay. And so I dedicate this sermon to all those who serve our people on any hill, whether it's Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., or the Capitol Hill in any state across the nation, or quite frankly, the hilltop that most buildings of government are on. And so I dedicate this Beatles Shabbat sermon to each and everyone who works and serves or doesn't in those places. Day after day, alone on a hill, the man with the foolish grin is keeping perfectly still. But nobody wants to know him, thinks that he that is just a fool. And they don't like him, the fool
fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. Well on his way, his head in a cloud, the man of 1,000 voices talking perfectly loud. But nobody ever hears him or the sound he appears to make. They don't like him. The fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. Nobody seems to like him. They can tell what he wants to do, and he never shows his feelings. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. Whoa, whoa, round and round and round and round and round. And he never listens to them. He knows that they're the fools, and they don't like him. The fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. He never listens to them. He knows that they're the fools, and they don't like him. The fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. A little sermon for the day. We turn our thoughts from the silly and the fun of this Beatles Shabbat, and we turn in our prayer book to page 598. As we come to Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, this week we remember the names and the memories of Blaine Miles, of Claire Alexandra Mock, David Bram, Lalette Black, Max Reinstein, Philip Mazer, Tracy Nadell, Francis Wegner, Jacob Kaufman, Risa Johnson, Abraham Rosenberg, Dan Winograd, Joseph Gerber, Lillian Finkelstein, Abe Bain, Alan Ozier, Benjamin Goldfarb, Donna Slosky, Hattie Khan, Ira Sheck, Norman Leonard, Oren Lagbus Umbauer, Lucille Taubin, Mary Shore, Alta Silver, Katie Goldstein, Ruth Fox, Doris Rosenberg, Lieutenant Irving Waxman, Nathan Kelmer, Sina Berlinski, and Tim Burke. We also note the recent passing of Frida Ferris, mother of Dan Ferris. Are there any other yard sites that anyone is observing this week? Yehu Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be a blessing. We ask mourners to rise, and those whose custom it is to stand with them, as in their memory we sanctify God's name. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Ehe shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei almaya, V'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom dimromav huya aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We can all be seated. Before we bring our service to a close, David Weiss, Vice President of our Board of Directors, has a few announcements for all of us. So we'll welcome David up to the bima. We'll turn the microphone back on here. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's wonderful to see everybody here on this special night, and new people too. If you're new, make sure you say hello to people. It's wonderful to see all of you. Not sure how tall I should be to do this. But thank you, Rabbi, for leading us on this special.
This can go like this. It's fancy.
That's true. Okay, I feel very tall. Okay, thank you, Rabbi. This was really great. In case you didn't know, it's Purim season. Monday, March 6th, is the Purim celebration and a Megillah reading of the 2023 season. Purim pasta dinner starts at 6 with a Megillah reading starting at 6:30. Come in costume and join the costume parade. Join in the fun for the hip-hop Purim spiel. Join the sing-along, eat the treats, and have all the fun at Temple Shalom. There's still time to sign up at templeshalom.com. It sounds very exciting. The Men and Women's Club event on Sunday, March 5th includes the time for davening at 9 a.m., breakfast at 9:30 a.m. Suggested donation for members of Temple Shalom is $7, and for non-members is $10. And their speaker on a timely subject, cybersecurity. Mr. Alfred Oritz is the CEO of CSD Cyber with a long resume in the area. Join us and get informed. And daylight savings time begins March 12th. The same Sunday, Rabbi Jay will have they never taught me that at Hebrew school class called Yes, You Can Eat Rice and Corn on Pesach. See, I told you. Join Rabbi Jay from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'm going to pay for that one. Okay. To learn about corn and rice, go to templeshalom.com to register. Temple Shalom is hiring an education coordinator and an executive director. Contact our current executive director, Elena Rathman, for further information. And the ritual committee is looking for a few good folks who'd like to be leaders in the Kabbalat Shabbat services on Friday, April 14th. Individuals and groups will be welcome. Contact Debbie Patz or Judy Karnick, who's over there, to volunteer or to get some information. And of course, if you know any temple members who are ill, hospitalized, or suffering from a loss, please contact the temple office so we can be sure to provide encouragement and support. And thanks to Temple Shalom and all the Beatles Battle Oneg participants for our Oneg this evening. And the little thing here has a yellow submarine with, I think the rabbi is one of these people possibly. Elena did a nice job there. Any other announcements? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Again, when we go back for our oneg tonight, don't jump into the food yet because we have lots of people who are participating in our Beatles festivities, and there are prizes. We have the best presentation. There's a certificate. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. This certificate, it is. You can frame this. The frame will cost way more than the certificate costs to make, but you can frame it. There's also another certificate for best tasting Beatles dessert. So we're going to judge them for looks. We're going to judge them for taste. And what are these? Oh, look at that. These say Starbucks on them. There must be 2 of them. I guess there might be prizes awarded with those certificates. So your vote really matters. Now, there's one Jewish poem that it's been said can be sung to the melody of anything. It can be sung to any tune ever written in the history of humanity, and it's really true because we've done it. And you see there's an organization called Young Judea. And Young Judea, it's a Jewish youth group. It's all over the country. It's in Israel also. In Young Judea, anybody ever been to anybody know about Young Judea? Anyone know? A few people know about Young Judea. There's a tradition in Young Judea. The chapter that can sing Adon Olam, the coolest tune, is the coolest chapter. Once upon a time, I was on top of Masada. I was with a bunch of high school students from Los Angeles. There was a program called LA Ulpan, Los Angeles Ulpan. It was a 6-week summer program that students would go to Israel for 6 weeks. They'd get high school credit and stuff. And we were on top of Masada one morning. We hiked up. And we were going to have services at sunrise on Masada. And right by us was the group that had won the national championship of Adon Olam at the last national convention of Young Judea. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. This is a true story. They sang a melody of Adon Olam. We sang a melody of Adon Olam. It's the one we're going to sing right now. And they went, eh. And then they sang another one, and then we sang another one, and they sang another one, and finally, we won. One of their guys took his white t-shirt off and put it on a stick and started going like this with it. They gave up because we won. We'll do just this little beginning part of it for those who might appreciate this, and then we'll get to our real Adon Olam. All right. I don't know, the older people in the room might not get this, but and the youngest people in the room might not get this, but the people in the middle, you'll get this. Are we ready? This is what won the contest, so. That's your Nirvana Adon Olam. So there we go. That's kind of cool and fun. But this is Beatles Shabbat, so we can't end on a Nirvana Adon Olam. We have to end on a Beatles Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Hashem Olam, Hashem Kol Yitzira. Page 625. The Yisrael B'Chevrocho, Azan Melech, Shimon trumpets. Ready? Every one of us has all we need, sky of blues and sea of blues in our yellow submarine. Aha! We all live in a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine. We all live in a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine. Please join me back in the social hall. So we can say hamotzi, so we can say hamotzi. And we'll all say the kiddush together, and then we will judge our Beatles desserts tonight. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Chag Purim Sameach in just a couple of days. Please join us for kiddush and motzi and some judging of our Beatles desserts. We'll see you in the back room. La, 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 la.